Litwin. I'm the president of the Free Thinking Film Society. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight for what's going to be a very, very interesting and terrific evening. I'll be very, very brief. A few words about the Free Thinking Film Society. As most of you know, I started this society in 2007, largely because of Michael Moore. At that point, his film Fahrenheit 9/11 was everywhere in Ottawa, and I wanted the Bytown Cinema to show a film that countered Michael Moore, that was against Michael Moore, and they refused. And so I started to realize the only way I could see a film like that was to actually hire a cinema in Ottawa and show films. And by the time I got around to hiring the Rainbow Cinema in the St. Laurent Shopping Centre, I wanted to show a film called Obsession about radical Islam. And about 2 weeks before that film was going to show, the cinema canceled my film because they had gotten one email complaining about the film. And that sort of put me on the map ever since, and it's been onward and upward, and we've done 3 film festivals. We've shown around 60 to 70 films in Ottawa. We've brought in a whole host of speakers on all sorts of topics on liberty, freedom, and democracy. A few words of what's coming up next. Our next event is early March. I'm planning to do an event on brainwashing in the schools. Now, I just haven't firmed it all up, so I'm still working on that event, but stay tuned. April 10th, I'm bringing in Neil Kressel from the States, who is a professor who's just written a new book on anti-Semitism in the Muslim world, which he calls A Conspiracy of Silence. Nobody wants to talk about it. That's April 10th, it'll be here. And then on May 13th, we're going to bring in Daniel Pipes. I don't know if you know Daniel Pipes, but he's quite a famous commentator on what's going on in the Muslim world, in the Middle East, etc., etc. It's going to be a very interesting evening with Daniel Pipes. Tonight, my friend Chris Crockett a few months ago gave me a copy of the film that we're going to see tonight. And I watched this film about the seal hunt, and I was enthralled. It's a terrific, terrific movie, and I knew that I had to have an event to show a side of the seal hunt that most Canadians just never see. And I'm just really, really glad a lot of people have come out, and some very, very important people have come out. And I think you'll see that it's a great film. Now, we have some trinkets that we're going to be giving away from the Fur Institute, some great wallets and stuff. So if you haven't already, make sure your email address, your name is on a card that goes into our bin outside. We'll be drawing for a bunch of these wallets later on tonight. About 6 months ago, I happened to, in Ottawa, my friend Terry Glavin invited me to coffee with Madeleine Redfern, who is the mayor of Iqaluit in Nunavut. And that was the start of a friendship. And it was quite interesting talking to her because, you know, I showed a documentary a year and a half ago about the biases of the CBC, and it turns out she doesn't like the CBC as well. Because to her, the CBC is basically elitists from Toronto, basically telling people in the North how they should think. And so it was quite interesting talking to her. When I knew that I was going to have this event, I sent her an email, and I said, would you like me to read a statement? Because I know you can't come down from that far north. And she wrote a statement. I'd just like to spend a few minutes reading her thoughts on sealing. I'm truly sorry to have missed tonight's screening of the movie, as sealing is an issue that I'm very passionate about. Like the Magdalen Island sealers, sealing is more than simply a livelihood. It's part of our Inuit and Canadian history. It's part of our culture, as well as part of our food culture, and one way we connect with our natural environment. Animal rights groups and activists, like Greenpeace, have targeted sealers for over 40 years, attempting by all means to end this way of life. It's not about truth or tolerance. It's not about science or conservation. It's definitely not about sustainability or environmentalism. Nor is it even about animal welfare. The anti-seal campaigns are all about manipulated and manufactured facts and half-truths, shock tactics, and celebrities like Paul McCartney attempting to emotionally sway mainstream public opinion against a legitimate and sustainable use of a natural resource based on cultural prejudice and intolerance. Canadians care deeply about our environment. We support the principles of conservation, sustainability, and responsible development. We value cultural diversity because we are a multicultural society. We cherish human rights, including inherent rights to freedoms and choice, which should include the right to different livelihood. Yet somehow we've inadvertently strayed away from these principles and values when it comes to sealing. Yes, sealing is a small minority industry, but it doesn't make it less worthy of consideration or defending. In fact, because it is marginal, it requires additional and special protections. If the animal rights groups are successful in ending sealing, what is next? Yep. Remember that animal rights groups do not support any animal use. Which next vulnerable group will they target and attack? We have an individual and collective duty to stand up against propaganda that would dehumanize and demonize people solely based on using a different natural resource than that of the majority. Anti-sealing is simply counterproductive to environmentalism. We need good and honest leadership when it comes to environmental issues. That's why it's shocking and unconscionable that the Green Party of Canada, a national party that has an anti-sealing policy. Politics and entertainers of vilification must be challenged and exposed for what it is and all its harmful effects. In closing, I am reminded by a quote from Ralph Stockman. The quote is, "The test of courage comes when we are in a minority. The test of tolerance comes when we are in the majority."
Yeah.
Very powerful statement. I really appreciate what Madeline has written. Okay, I was delighted to ask the Minister of Health, Leona Agluck, to come to our screen tonight, and she was very kind enough to agree to come and speak. Ms. Agluck was first elected to work for the Nunavummiut, sorry if my pronunciations are bad, in the House of Commons in October 2008. On October 30th, 2008, she became the first Inuk to be sworn into the federal cabinet as the Minister of Health. In May 2001, after being elected for a second term, Ms. Agluck was again sworn in as Minister of Health, this time with an additional portfolio, the Minister of the Canadian Northern Economic Development Agency. In August 2012, Ms. Agluck was honored to be named the new chair of the Arctic Council and sworn as the Minister of the Arctic Council for Canada. So please welcome the Minister of Health, Ms. Leona Agluck.